Family Skeptical, Parenting Through Nonbelief.
We're a married atheist couple raising two wonderful, strange children. We ask big questions, dissect weird parenting moments, and examine how society ignores or misrepresents families like ours. If you're any stripe of nonbeliever who's involved in raising children, welcome. You are our people.
Our kids have heard all our swears, but yours might not have. So be thoughtful if there are young people listening with you. Pops.
Moms.
When this comes out, it will have just been Halloween a few days ago.
And 5 weeks since the rapture.
Yeah, that too.
Though I am trying to extend empathy to all the people who are looking forward to the end times actually being here and not getting their wish.
Yeah, I feel like we heard so much about it in advance. And I think some people did post afterwards, but I have not heard much about some of the people that were really seriously preparing for it.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be talking about empathy today, and so we can circle back to this in a bit.
Yeah. I will say, so there was this preacher in Africa, I believe. Yeah, who said the rapture was definitely coming.
Oh, 100%.
100%.
100%.
Some people definitely believed him.
Oh, yeah.
It definitely didn't happen.
Nope.
Then he revised it.
Oh, yeah.
That's also coming past. So
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what he said after that.
Does it really matter?
I don't think so.
I don't think it does. I don't think it matters at all.
No. Just for the people who made really bad life decisions, taking that advice seriously. But we instituted a little bit of a new tradition this year.
We did.
So we have talked about how important Christmas is to us as a family and how we watch Christmas movies every year. And I suggested that this year, in the lead up to Halloween, we try watching, I don't know if horror is the right term, but kind of
Halloween movies.
Yeah, watching Halloween movies for the month of October. And I would say it has, knock on wood, pretty much been a success.
Yes.
And I think it's been interesting because, I don't know, I think it's just it's been such an interesting glimpse into the kids' minds because we've talked a lot about kind of what kind of scary stuff they do well with. And it's a challenge because particularly Reader has been interested in seeing more scary movies.
Yes.
But
the self-proclaimed phasmophobic.
Yes. Yeah. But
so
Reader,
it limits what we can watch.
Yes. Reader does not do well with ghosts. And there's some other scary stuff that has bothered them. But I thought there would be enough that we could watch this is sort of the first year that we could make it work. So yeah, do you want to talk about some of the things that went well?
We watched Exorcist. And then we started Hellraiser, and Go had to stop literally 2 minutes in. Yeah.
So we both talked about how different Exorcist is to watch as parents versus young people. And I do think there's a level of horror in that movie that gets much worse as a parent.
Yes, Exorcist definitely hit that. Yeah.
Because I think, to me, what's so special about The Exorcist and kind of that 70s era of horror is that I actually don't think the final scenes when she's full on demon are that terrible. To me, the sort of looming dread of that movie is all the stuff leading up to it when her mom doesn't know what's going on. And I think particularly some of the scenes where she's having her daughter take sort of medical tests, trying to figure out what's going on.
Yep.
Those are shot with such a level of just kind of dread and foreboding That I actually think that's what makes the ending so scary, is just how well they've done building up that tension and dread. But I did think, I don't know, I sort of thought the kids would be okay, and they basically were.
Yeah, they were.
And then, so let's see, just other things that were successful. Reader really wanted to see Scream, so we saw Scream, and that was okay. That was a funny movie to watch after having not seen it in a really long time.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And we did like a fun one. We did Babysitter's Guide to Monster
Hunting.
To Monster Hunting. But Hellraiser was a hard no. And, well, first, do you think you understand why Go was just like, absolutely not?
Yeah, the body horror was too intense for him.
Oh, okay.
It was, it was seeing it was basically seeing Frank get ripped apart.
Yeah.
And his body parts scattered all over the room, either on the rotating towers of gore or spread on the floor, or hanging from the hooks. And then Pinhead coming over and reassembling Frank's face. It was just, he's lay back in the sofa, crossed his arms, and he had that look. I'm like, hey, bud, how you doing? And he's like, I lost my appetite. I'm like, do you want to stop? He just nods. I'm like, okay, we're going to come back to this one next year. Yeah.
So do you think, does it make sense to you that that would be a hard no when he was fine with the Thing? Is that made by the same? Are they both?
No.
Okay, sorry.
No. Hellraiser is Clive Barker.
Barker, that's right.
The Thing is John Carpenter.
Yeah.
And I think the Thing works because it's the form getting subverted into something alien and non-human.
Mm-hmm.
So a creature feature, right?
Yeah.
Whereas Hellraiser is basically dismemberment without like that sort of reimagining of the form, though the Cenobites themselves are, as far as creature features go, great body horror.
Yeah, I think that maybe is the thing, because I was thinking of the Cenobites, which are kind of like the people from hell in that movie. And I think because there were some that I just ruled out that you wanted on the list. I said, no Shining, no Prince of Darkness. I can't remember if there was another one.
Event Horizon.
No Event. You didn't think we should do Event Horizon.
I wish.
I know.
We'll get there.
But I think I was thinking of the Cenobites, and I think they would be fine with them. I was not necessarily thinking of the other stuff. But it was interesting because I have a very intense history with Hellraiser, because I have talked about going through a period where I was deeply terrified of hell.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, there was a comic book store we went to a lot. And a lot of comic book stores have comics, but they also have figurines you can buy and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that store had figurines from Hellraiser.
Mm.
And I could barely be in the same room with them.
Oh, that's cool.
Much less watch the movie. It was just way too close to my fears. So I did not see that until we were dating. Because I was just Event Horizon, which also sort of has to do with hell themes, nearly destroyed me in high school. So yeah, I hadn't seen it until I watched it with you. It was kind of a big moment because I had built it up so much in my mind. And I think it was fine. I think it was kind of a revelation seeing it with you that I could just be fine with it. But it was weird because I will have to say, when we started it, I wasn't feeling great about watching it either. So I was kind of happy that Go pulled the plug on it.
Lame.
I would have made it through.
It's okay. Lame.
Yeah. I don't think I like torture.
Okay.
I'm cool with a lot of horror, but I'm not. I think it's thinking about the torture that I have a hard time with. But good to know. I mean, we're not really into neither you nor I likes kind of torture porn horror to begin with. So
that's fair. Yes.
That would never be high And that is not what Hellraiser is, to be fair.
No.
But moving forward, like, that'll not be high on our list of things that we suggest. But it's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to pick The Fly for mine. So that'll be interesting to see.
Yes.
I think they'll do okay with it.
I think they'll do fine with it. The Fly is straight up creature feature.
Yeah. But it is like, yeah.
It's like The Thing. It's just body horror.
Yeah. I mean, I am excited that they'll get to see a Cronenberg movie. Because...
we should watch Existenz.
I gotta look at that
with
one to see.
Jude Law's gun hand?
Yeah, no, I know. I don't remember enough of it. So my two favorite directors in the world are David Lynch first, and then David Cronenberg. So it is very exciting to think about getting to do a Cronenberg. And then we won't... And The Fly is like the least of his for me. So, but still, it's Cronenberg. Maybe we can do Existenz. I mean, the problem with Cronenberg is his stuff gets so weirdly sexual. There's a lot of stuff we can't do until...
Beverly.
Yeah, well, that's my favorite.
Yeah, I
know. Maybe we could do Existenz. Do you think Existenz is on Common Sense Media?
Why would I care what that Christian spew fest has
not
to say
a Christian. We've already talked about it.
Favorite movies.
We've already talked about it.
Right, we've talked about it, and we remain in differing camps about it.
Well, no, it's helpful because it literally details anything objectionable in the film. So you can make of those things what you will, but it'll list all of them. I did look, and they do not have scanners. So there is some stuff that they have deemed so far outside the realm of anything you would show children is just not going to be listed. And I have...
Well, you know what it would be? It would be the end times Karens complaining about, witchcraft, which doesn't exist in the film. And then all the teens offering counterpoints and rebuttals to the tune of, they make heads explode, and that's cool.
Yeah.
5 stars.
Yeah. Though I don't think teens are cool enough anymore to be watching Scanners, unfortunately.
That's totally unfair. One of the kids, it is. I think you're being dismissive, not knowing enough about youth culture. There is a kid at Goes Fencing the other day who had a Killer Clowns from Outer Space shirt on. I just assumed that she got it at some Hot Topic or whatever and had no idea about the film. And that was a movie I saw a million times when I was a teenager because, I grew up in the 80s.
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah, I love the movie. I saw the shirt first, and she was like, that's really cool. Then she saw I love the movie, and now I wear the shirt because I love the movie. And then she got sucked into that whole vein of the Tromaville, super campy 80s and early 90s stuff. And I was like, this gives me hope for the future. So you do not know of what you speak. Plenty of kids will watch that, and they'll know all the Jeffrey Combs movies. Ooh, we should watch From Beyond. That's legitimately Lovecraft. We should watch From Beyond.
I don't think I even know that.
And
movie.
Reanimator. Ooh. We should watch that too. It's not sexual as much as it is like 80s horror had just gratuitous boobs.
Oh, that's fine.
Then we should get into all the Living Dead movies.
Yeah.
Then we see Linnea Quigley.
So anyway, I think at least so far, nothing we've watched has caused sleepless nights.
No.
No,
this was days ago.
Yeah.
It would have bubbled up beforehand.
Yeah. So fingers crossed, because I kind of like this tradition.
Yeah.
And in some ways it'll be fun because since it's horror and there's a lot of stuff we can't show them, it'll really change each year.
Yeah.
Because each year there'll be more and more things we can do. And so that kind of, I think that'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. It has been a couple of interesting weeks to be an atheist as far as messaging coming out of the Trump White House. Do you have Trump's whole thing pulled up, or should I?
Well, okay. We're not gonna read the whole thing because
No.
as long as you know what.
Yeah.
It was a national security presidential memorandum. Given this White House, national security, presidential, and memorandum as terms mean different things and probably shouldn't be used in the same sentence without context given. But this is like in the wake of the Kirk assassination. It's just a presidential memo. Just a lot of like cope, red meat for his base. Dog whistles abound.
Got it. And it was after Charlie Kirk's death?
This was on end of September.
Okay.
It was on Thursday. Hang on a second. That's actually a good question. So this would have been on Thursday, the 25th of September.
Oh yeah, he died September 10th.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I somehow, my brain didn't necessarily order it that way.
No, context and bias matter. Thank you for wanting to check it. This is what we teach our kids to do. It's important to do. So the snippet, I'll just read it. This is a quotation, okay? There are common recurrent motivations and indicia uniting this pattern of violent and terroristic activities under the umbrella of self-described, quote-unquote, anti-fascism. Common threads animating this violent conduct include anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, and anti-Christianity, support for the overthrow of the United States government, extremism on migration, race, and gender, and hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on family, religion, and morality. That's it. Pretty troubling stuff at its face.
Yeah, and then I wanted to add to it because American Atheists just sent out an email.
Mm-hmm.
And so American Atheists is one of the groups that signed on to the most recent No Kings protests that just happened as one of the supporting groups. And in response, Majority Whip John Barrasso of Wyoming said all these rallies are going to be led by the far-left activists, and all will be calling on the Democrats to keep the government closed. And the Democrats in this body are beholden to every single one of these far-left activist groups like Resist Trump and American Atheists. So there were a ton of groups obviously signed on to the No Kings protest. I feel assured, I think American Atheists does great work, but in the big scheme of things, they are a relatively small group. Exactly. So again, I think calling that out simply because it would be seen as a scary
it's a dog whistle.
Scary thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like you listen to debates more. You're a little bit more in that space. Like, do you think atheists are still a good dog whistle? Do you think we are still seen as a frightening possibility?
I think increasingly less generally, but within the subset that's the Trump cult, increasingly more so.
Interesting.
You got to remember, these are the people that were convinced the end times were coming.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
No.
They're the people that are convinced that Trump is like a literal, like the hand of God.
Yeah. I mean, I think.
And not all Trump, I'm sorry, not to interrupt, but like not all Trump supporters or not all Trump voters feel that way. I'm talking specifically about the people that when presented with contradictory evidence or when presented with examples of, contradictions in their worldview will just circle the wagons and bias themselves out of it over and over again because they refuse to let go of that belief, right? Though that is the subset I'm talking about, because there are plenty of people who voted for him for whatever reason who would not vote for him again based on what he has done and what his administration has done. And that is glaringly obvious. These people are all over the place talking about it. So I'm not like giving like new information or surprises here. So no, I'm talking about like that specific cultish subset. They will absolutely hear that from the administration and be like, preach.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing that surprised me most when I started to listen to more far-ish right Christian media was I sort of thought we would be enemy number one. And one of the things I found most interesting was that there seemed to be much more animosity towards left-leaning Christians or progressive Christianity than towards anyone non-religious.
Man, those Judases.
I know. I think there's, I don't know. I don't know if we're seen as unreachable. I don't know if that is seen as a bigger offense because it's coming from a Christian standpoint, or they feel like it's a, bastardization of something they hold dear. But it's been a fascinating thing to watch. But yeah, I mean, it's, I think it's interesting to think back because when I was sort of realizing I was an atheist, it was kind of a big moment for me when the first President Bush said that atheists weren't Americans or something along those lines. It was pretty shocking and really made me think that, people had stronger feelings or misunderstandings about us than I had sort of realized in my more liberal community.
Well, there's like a dogmatic expression, of Christianity in the right-leaning folk regarding how they view the founding fathers or just like the population in general back then. And, you can't like, they refuse to hear anything other than what they already accept. Even when you present people with like, these historical figures' own words, it doesn't do anything. Like that's why I stopped, largely I stopped discussing these things with people online, because without the nuance of like the spoken word, all you have is information. And if a person is in a place where they're predisposed to not accept new information because they view it as a personal attack, just hearing like a divergent viewpoint is somehow a personal attack on them, that there's no conversation to have. Then you're basically just shouting your frustration at another mind because that mind exists in opposition to yours. We're going to circle back to this when we talk about empathy, but it's like there's so little good to be done. That's why I don't like engaging in that sort of stuff, and I would much rather watch TikTok or YouTube debate shows, call-in shows, because that's actually like where the minds are expressed through voice, and all of that extra communication that happens through tone and inflection and real-time discourse allow for not only better debate, more substantive debate, but also allows for people to more easily find common ground, which again leads to an increasingly better conversation.
Yeah.
But they're entrenched. And so it's not easy to get a person out of that. You can't just like list facts and expect them to be like, oh, well, that's it. I'm changing my mind. It just doesn't work that way.
Do you feel worried? Do you think atheist groups are going to be targeted more? Do you think this is just like convenient rhetoric for them?
I think it's convenient rhetoric. I think it's easy when you're a part of a group that gets called out by a bully to immediately try to circle the wagons or to live in fear. But that's like, ultimately, that's what they want.
Yeah.
And my goal through this entire administration is to take as many actions as I can to keep my eyes open about what's actually happening and to be able to give myself the best possible opportunity to have a clear-headed reaction to what's happening. And the only way I can do that is if I seek to minimize my emotional reactions to what they attempt to do. They want that rhetoric to cause a rise. They want to do these things in a way that makes people get upset in a certain way. And I think that it's very important that we don't take the bait.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very important that we keep our eyes on the prize. We've talked about this in past episodes about the necessity to focus on the society we want after this is done. Because this will not last forever. None of it ever does. So what kind of society do we want after that? And that's why I love how, you see lifelong Republicans who don't side with Trump, right?
Mm-hmm.
Military vets who were libertarian, who don't side with Trump. All sorts of people who are connected only by the fact that they do not like authoritarianism, marching together in the millions repeatedly now. This isn't a one-time thing, and it's going to happen again. And this one was bigger than the last one. So they're going to keep happening. And so I think that is more important. And I think the necessity of marches and peaceful protests are lost on those diehard Trump cultists because they don't see it as being effective. They take the Trump stance of the bullying and belittling because they view it as ineffective and they only prize power, even though that power is actively being wielded against them. They've already ceded by siding with the cult. They've already ceded their power and control. They are now mere puppets. They are now mere mouthpieces, because they've insulated their brains from changing and recognizing when anything Trump does is violating morality or violating what they expected from him. It's just that everything he does is automatically given a rubber stamp mentally, right? And so as we see the administration say things like in this memorandum or whatever it does, like as abominable as it was, that like midnight raid on the apartment building in Chicago.
Oh, man. I don't even like thinking about it.
Right? But they greenlight this nonsense because they want to instill fear and they want to distract us from the things they are doing. That's why when I discuss these things, my refrain is always about the Epstein files. And I do that glibly, but I do that because I can do it glibly, because that is the thing that ultimately they are trying to distract from. Why is Mike Johnson not like swearing in Grivala? Why not? Why is she yet to be a voting member of the House? Because she's a Dem and she would vote to release the files, right? These are people who claim to care about children. They claim to care about the rule of law and all these things and be patriots. And yet they are doing everything they can to allow the Trump administration to do these horrible things, say these horrible things about their own neighbors and their own friends and family. Why? Because it's a convenience. Because they know it gets a rise out of, anybody left of Trump cult world. And they know it's a dog whistle to Trump cult world. And they know that because of that Trump cult world, when they hear those things, will think about those things and not about the things that the Trump administration is trying to cover up. I thought it was really interesting that Trump, spiritual advisor Laura Loomer was all up in arms about Qatar getting, access to that airbase on U.S. soil. Right? She was like, this is a deal breaker for me. And now we're seeing Marjorie Taylor Greene, to her credit, being consistent and being why are we not seeing these things? If the guy was innocent, we wouldn't need all this smoke and mirrors. He would have already come out with the files. An innocent person releases it immediately. It'll be yeah, I got nothing to hide. It's the simplest thing to do, and it takes it off the board, right?
Yeah.
It takes that piece off of the board. And then it's all right, lefties, now what? But he never did it, and he never will. And the cult's lying to itself, but also they allow for stuff like this memorandum to come out and completely polarize them again in this sort of religious fervor because they see anti-Christianity, anti-capitalist, anti-American as being like those lazy, socialist, communist heathens.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have this picture in their head as like all atheists are lazy because only godliness yields the virtue of hard work. Like it's this thing that they have. It's
Oh,
weird
man.
it's weird
Yeah.
as hell. But they've allowed themselves to be co-opted mentally by this rhetoric and then the weirdest sort of like then they come back with these pictures of Bill Clinton with Epstein or whatever, or like with a young girl, and they're like, well, but then the retort from us is invariably something like, oh, well, I'll have to give up my Trump gold shoes, my Bill Clinton gold shoes, my Bill Clinton hat. I'll have to turn in my diploma from Bill Clinton University and give up my set of Bill Clinton steak knives. Like, they don't understand that we just want justice and the truth.
Yeah.
By and large, I would say it's a high 90% of
and
people.
I think the best of us are like, if we find out that somebody we respect did something terrible, then
we will not
fine.
respect them as much, and we will want them to see justice.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, that's the thing with empathy, which we're going to talk about again, is that you apply it. And we just saw this in Star Trek. Star Trek consistently being a great example of how society should be. Captain Pike talking about how empathy is useless if it's not universally applied. This is something we just saw that I, patting myself on the back, was talking about in previous episodes because it is so true. And it wasn't like I came up with the idea either. You know, empathy is useless if it's not universally applied. I apply empathy towards the Trump folks that have been mentally co-opted by this rhetoric to the point where they are now weaponized against their neighbors and convinced that itself is patriotism. Like Marjorie Taylor Greene at this point is, God help me, is more of a patriot than they are. I can't believe I'm saying those words.
Yeah.
But it's true. It's true on its face and it's true in substance. So, man, interesting times we live in. Sorry, like you asked about it and I just absolutely went off. Honey, what do you think about the memorandum?
Oh,
we check in on minute 35. Sorry.
I think I feel the same. I mean, it's
all
nothing...
right, next segment.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, it's so infuriating because everything that the Trump administration accuses anyone else of is 100% things they are doing themselves. And it is just, you can just count on it. You can just count on it. And you can read through everything you just read, and it is all things that they are doing. So,
except the anti-capitalist part. They're definitely capitalists.
They are. That's true. That is true. Well, I think that is more complex as well.
What?
Because they are doing things that are making it incredibly hard for businesses to function. Like, they are ideologically doing things.
That's fair. That is an interesting thing where like traditional capitalism is now being subverted by oligarchy.
Yeah.
To the point where now their sweetheart deals to other countries, for instance, are absolutely ruining things like the domestic soybean production. Yeah. I feel so bad for like the family-owned soybean farms that are they voted for Trump for economic reasons because they were afraid for their livelihood, and I get it and I empathize, and now they have been destroyed by this guy.
Well, because I think this is what happened, right? I think that was true of the first Trump administration, where you had people that were just going to grease the wheels for business, but who were competent people. We've
talked about this.
Yeah.
John Oliver doppelganger, Steve Mnuchin.
Yeah, but exactly. But they were competent people, right? And this administration, it it's not that. It's ideologues
What did you
who
say?
don't actually care.
The first administration was lawful evil and this one's chaotic evil. I think that's such a great way of looking at it.
I think that's what happened. And I think that's why some people thought they were okay voting for him again, because as terrible as the first administration was for lots of people, and it caused so much pain and hardship.
This one is like a fire tornado.
Yeah, it was very different.
It exists only to sustain itself, and it consumes all it touches.
So I would say even there, it's questionable. It's
fair. No, that's fair.
What's happening? I think I'm more curious just to think, back to when I was a teenager and a similar statement had such a huge impact on me. I wonder if it'll make people think, I don't know, maybe make people think more about their own non-religiosity or sort of where they fit in things. I doubt it, but I'm minorly curious.
Apparently, there was a pastor who was charged with a criminal violation of a fire safety code for letting homeless people sleep in his church overnight. And the comment, "We live in a country where fake Christians are in power, but real Christians go to jail."
Yep.
I mean, that's a pretty reductionist way of looking at it. Empathy. I think that will be the thing that comes out of all of this, is that people who had drifted apart ideologically have actually been united by the Trump administration. I've seen it in my group of friends, people with whom I stopped communicating for a couple of years because they were just parroting some of this stuff. And some of them have actually, without any intervention from me or whatever, I've seen the things they post now, and they're completely in lockstep with every other person who opposes Trump. Like there is an absolute, I'm absolutely convinced that there is a cultural shift happening, and that America is a young, ignorant country that is going through growing pains. I can't wait to be able to talk to my grandkids about this with the hindsight of all the wisdom that would have come, in the intervening years.
I certainly hope so. All right. So you were talking about empathy.
Sure.
And there was a really interesting news story that I've heard a couple commentators talk about. They were just talking about it on Thank God I'm an Atheist.
Okay.
There was an absolutely tragic shooting at a Mormon church, temple, Mormon place of worship.
Yeah.
Awful.
Yeah.
And kind of amazingly, somebody, they did a fundraiser for the victims of that shooting, but they chose to also do a fundraiser for the family, the wife and child of the man who did the shooting. And I would say, I think Thank God I'm an Atheist had their segment on it was really interesting, talking about sort of the good and bad of that. But it made me think a little bit about forgiveness.
Sure.
Because I feel like forgiveness is such a big part of Christianity. You might be able to speak to it more. But it just made me think, because I don't know if I fully understand my relationship to forgiveness. And it was just something I wanted to talk about, because I didn't know, sort of having been a Christian and moved away from that, how your understanding of it might have changed, how you feel about it. I feel like it's certainly not like an essential part of atheist conversations I've heard. And yeah, so to start, have you sort of in your progression, has your sense of forgiveness, its importance or how you feel about it changed at all?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Can you talk about it a little bit? Because how do in the context of that and sort of its role in religion is a good thing or a bad thing? I'm curious how you think about it.
Well, the idea of forgiveness in Christianity, just in a nutshell, I think is really complex. Because while there's plenty of verses that talk about the importance of forgiveness, and some Christians will laud the idea of turning the other cheek, the Bible itself is riddled with horrible examples of actions that are just blatantly unjust and have absolutely no indication that God or the characters in these stories are interested at all in forgiveness.
Yeah.
Not even close. Quite the opposite, in fact. So I think trying to take your marching orders regarding forgiveness or empathy from the Bible is really thorny proposition. And you're just kind of better off going on us being social creatures that have to coexist and just leaving it at that and not really delving into the metaphysics or the philosophy of it. But that being said, my version of it was something like I didn't really think about it a lot when I was a Christian because I was too young, and also like I mean I've always been autistic, and I just always viewed emotions and relationships maybe in a skewed way. And so I'm not the best person to ask about that stuff. But the more that I got out of religion, that like initially, of course, not of course, but like many, I was angry. I was angry at feeling like I'd been lied to, or that I had spent so much time thinking in a certain way and it just turned out to be a lie. And I found it difficult to forgive myself for that. Yeah, that was a big one. I was angry at my parents for a little bit for like allowing me to like be subjected to that, like what I considered then to be a lie. Mom and dad, totally fine. Don't worry about it. It's all good. I was angry at the institution for lying to other people. Basically, I viewed the whole enterprise as being fundamentally unjust, and that I had a hard time forgiving any aspect of the institution. And then I turned my sights on God the Father, and I started thinking about divine hiddenness or the problem of natural evil, or God allowing humans to be his supposed mouthpieces with his blessing, and then saying and doing things that are themselves, even on their face, unjust. I had a very hard time forgiving God. I was like very much an angry atheist for a while. But then I forgave myself for making those decisions. I forgave everybody in my circle for entrusting the institution with me. I forgave other believers for believing things that I no longer viewed as being true, especially since some of those other believers were more consistently moral, even in a secular sense, more consistently moral than I was. Like that forgiveness that I found allowed me to really tap into humility, and it allowed me to grow much faster just as a person and as a parent, because I ended up getting out of my own way. I wasn't holding on to all those things that had happened in the past. And forgiveness is that release. And so it's important to release yourself, but also it's important to release the other person, because then what you're doing is you're setting an example for the sort of beneficent society that you want to see in the world. You know, we don't want to live in a society where punishments are unjust and inequitable. We want to see a society where punishments are just and equitable. We want to see a society where punishments are not eternal for finite slights, for instance. Looking at you, God. You know, we want this for our children and our children's children. And so I thought it was really increasingly important for me to tap into forgiveness, but also to forgive myself first, because so much of a lack of ability to forgive if you dig down, can be rooted in something akin to you not forgiving yourself for being able to stop the thing, right? Like that self-blame can stymie your ability to forgive the other person. It's perpetually going to block you up. And yeah, forgiveness is really critical, but it's by no means this defining or proprietary feature for Christianity. Like some people might think it is, simply because there are some parts of the Bible that talk about it. There are some parts of the Bible of the Quran, some parts of the Quran that talk about it, you know?
Do you think, because I was just looking up the definition. And so I'm looking here, and it says an intentional decision to let go of resentment and anger towards someone who has harmed you without forgetting, excusing, or condoning the offense.
Yep.
Is that typically how you think about it when you think about forgiveness?
Absolutely. Like you can't allow future offenses, but you can allow, or like future offenses of that same sort, but you also can't allow for the punishment to exceed the crime, right? And if you can get that reduction in harm in the future without doing a commensurate amount of harm to the offender, I honestly like I don't care. Like if the person being let go to do it again is obviously not just.
Yeah.
Like that person should be locked away, but but restoration of that person's mind and restoration of that person's functionality as human in society should never be taken off the table. Like my empathy extends to everybody. Like it extends to serial killers. It extends to everybody. Like, because we're ultimately all human beings on this rock.
Yeah.
Like a serial killer, sure, they did this horrible thing, but that is a broken mind. Like punishing the mind for being broken due to no fault of its own, that's not right. It should be institutionalized. It should be studied. And then we should, through rigorous science and analysis, we should then use that to head off future serial killers at the pass with robust, free mental health care.
I know.
And actual, and people, and like institutions at like a state and local level actually acting on red flags that they see in their community. Like that sort of stuff should absolutely happen, but that is part of empathy, because then you're using that extension of yourself and how you want to minimize harm to the whole of society. That's necessary, you know, and Christianity doesn't say no to that at all, but Christianity doesn't, like, if you're going by the Bible, doesn't exclusively say yes to that. And sometimes, you know, might say no. That's the problem, is that, you know, you get this stuff like the Trump memorandum and they make it sound like Christianity is like the font of morality. And obviously we know that's not true.
So you don't feel like Christianity inherently helps people be forgiving?
No, I think that people are forgiving. And I think that sometimes being in a church that teaches like to actually like exhibit loving kindness and not just offer words to it and then go and like lick ice boots as a pastime.
Yeah.
Like actually doing the works of the loving kindness and the whatever Christ-like emulation. Like some churches do that.
Yeah.
And they are allies, and we've talked about that a lot. I'm not going to talk about it now. But that's not a bad thing if that person who is predisposed to being less than good finds a church and are somehow rehabilitated or at least polarized in that more good direction, then that church experience is exactly what they should freaking keep doing.
Yeah,
You know?
I do. I think it's interesting that you talked about self-forgiveness, because I do think some people who have had I can imagine if you feel like you are beyond forgiveness.
I mean, it's trauma recovery.
Yeah, the whole message, well, one of the messages of Jesus of, granting that forgiveness for everyone, I can see that being very powerful. And I think, talking about how you needed to forgive yourself, I think for some people to finally feel that forgiveness could allow them to be forgiving towards others.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know. I think, because I was going to say I'm a very unforgiving person, because I think I was thinking about the definition slightly differently.
What was the definition that you were thinking of?
Well, because, I don't know. We've had some situations come up recently that have really highlighted that I have a very hard time judging other people, because I just always see the humanity and sort of the struggles they might be having that are keeping them from doing the best thing that they could in the situation. And so I think I have reached a point where I just find it very hard to make negative judgments about people when I can see sort of everything going into their circumstances. And so I try very hard not to judge. And so when people have done things that hurt me, I really rarely feel, I don't know about resentment, but I just it is very hard I don't feel angry, because despite the hurt they caused, I usually feel like I have some understanding of the circumstances around it. And so to be angry feels, I don't know, my empathetic response is too strong to wish them ill or punishment, or, you know what I mean? So I just wish that if there is something in their life that's making things hard for them, I wish that was better. I wish they had the capacity to be different in a certain circumstance, But that's not really anger. But on the other hand, I really don't forget about those things, right? So it's a weird, and I know the definition doesn't involve forgetting, but while I am incredibly empathetic and I am not angry, I also don't think I move on in any way. I don't know if that makes sense. And I feel like often when people talk about forgiveness, there's a certain sort of release that they talk about. And that I don't. And it's so interesting that you brought up repairing a situation, because I do think if I feel like the other person has acknowledged what happened and has done something to attempt to repair it, then I'm then I feel that then I'm just that is the past. We are moving on together. You know what I mean? But if I don't see any acknowledgement or any attempt to repair, I feel no anger. I feel no resentment for that person. But but it's not done for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's not in the past. It's not done. It's there. And so I feel like that somehow doesn't fit sort of the ethos of when lots of people talk about forgiveness. It remains a very pertinent data point in my head. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. It's just kind of how my brain works.
Well, I think what you're doing isn't necessarily a bad thing. And honey,
yeah,
you should forgive yourself for that.
I don't think I'm judging myself. I think I'm just sort of investigating.
You sound like you're a little judgy of yourself. But I think it's important, because what you're doing is I think what yields the wisdom that's actionable, right? for a lot of people, they go to that forgiveness as a release so they can then just move on and put it in the rear view. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to learn from the experience. What you're doing is you're holding on to, maybe albeit too tightly, but you're holding on to the animus, but you're releasing it enough to move on with the collective lives while still giving yourself that opportunity to go back over it. And can you learn something? What I would say, like that can be, like, you're mentally strong, I think, strong enough, but that can be a slippery slope, though, for people who have a hard time with self-doubt or self-harm, because then that might turn into a masochistic loop. If the going gets rough again, they might go back to using that person that they forgave, to going back to not forgiving them, to finding a reason to not forgive them again. Or maybe turning it inward and going back to not forgiving themselves because that person does something else, the different situation. But you then blame yourself for forgiving them when you shouldn't have ever forgiven them in the first place. Stuff like that. Like, minds are complex. And forgiveness is a choice I think, to remove the temporal nature of emotions from the relationship, to intentionally shelve one emotion for another action or ongoing set of actions. But it's those actions that are actually going to perhaps lead to a better circumstance for all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it comes back to Star Trek. Like, we gotta practice what we preach with this, because that's what's going to get us closer to having the world we want after all this horrible shit is in our rear view. No matter how long that takes, I'm not naive to think that it's a short process, but it will be unwound one way or another. And in the process, there will be a lot of lessons to be learned. And the process of the unwinding is going to make society more disposed to doing things like learning lessons about empathy and humility, right? Just by necessity. Like, that's the only way it's going to happen. Like, they go hand in hand. And so if we hold ourselves to too much of an account for, like it seems like you think you do for yourself, I think that we run the risk of putting ourselves back into that negative space just because we have that one foot in there that lets us analyze it and perhaps get even more, like, squeeze even more wisdom through further analysis. So, like, what I do every night is in my journaling is in part, after reflecting on the day, I have one section at the end, which is point, and another section after that, which is next time. And so in point, I try to look at one of the things that happened during the day, and I seek to gain at least some sort of cursory wisdom from it within the day. So I force myself to be really reflective and really humble and critical of my performance and the people around me. And then next time I talk about what I will do with that or with something else that happened to improve my performance in the future. And so what I started doing that because I realized that the analysis is useless if I can't figure out what wisdom can be had from it.
Yeah.
Right? I want something I can hold on to, take away from. Like, some of my best sort of 1-word or 2-word mantras that I've come up with have come out of that process. And so it has value and it's paying forward. But without going through it, you can't get that wisdom.
Yeah.
But also, what I think you might want to try, if you're feeling like this might have a deleterious effect on you, or if it does, then maybe find some way of tricking yourself into whenever you start thinking about something again, even after the forgiveness phase has largely happened, that you sort of mentally find a way to close a door, that you have a mantra, something you say to yourself that connects thought to the process.
Mm-hmm.
So it just becomes a heuristic. And then eventually it'll be a muscle that gets strong enough where those thoughts don't intrude unless you choose to revisit. It's not an involuntary process. It's a voluntary process. And at that point, when you have control over it, that's when I think that you can really sink your teeth into it safely. Like, you have it in the plexiglass, like hermetically sealed thing with the rubber gloves. You put your hands in the gloves from the outside and you're like handling with the lead lined gloves, a little like radioactive, whatever. And you're not at risk of getting contaminated.
Yeah, that I'm going to have to think about it. I feel like this is going to be something on my mind moving forward.
Hey, it took me years of trying to figure out how to make this journaling thing work for me to come up with that whole process. And it isn't what anybody else told me to do. I've never heard people do it this way. It's just mine. And it took time and effort and a lot of failure. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that anybody else needs to necessarily do it. I'm just saying this is what I do to get the wisdom without holding on to the emotions any longer than I possibly need to.
Yeah. And I'm now really wondering if kind of the thing that keeps it open for me are those situations where I don't feel like I've really grasped the lesson yet.
Sure.
And so it stays alive. And maybe that's okay because it keeps the questions going. Or maybe I need to look at it to think of it. I don't know. This is going to be on my mind. I'm glad we had the conversation. But we need to wrap things up. So we're going to thank Jonathan Zalbin and First Frame Music for the music for this podcast.
And that wraps up this episode of The Family Skeptical, where nothing is sacred except for our kids. Yeah, that got lively. I'm sorry for ranting.
No, it's okay.
You kind of like gave me the microphone and kind of nudged me to rant, so I did.
Well, I think I've ranted for like 3 episodes straight, so it felt very appropriate. Yeah.